I could scarcely believe my eyes when that audacious man strode toward our table without the slightest hesitation. With a smug grin, he seized my unfaithful wife's hand and, with an air of mockery, declared, "Why stay with this weakling? Let's dance first, and then I'll show you what a real man can do." Maintaining my composure, I executed a move I had rehearsed countless times before. A sickening crunch echoed through the upscale restaurant, followed by his agonized screams as he crumpled to the floor, clutching his shattered hand. The once lively establishment, adorned with understated elegance, fell into stunned silence. Dim lighting bathed polished mahogany tables in a warm glow, while soft piano music lingered in the background, a setting designed for power lunches and extravagant celebrations. A world I once navigated with ease, yet tonight, it felt like nothing more than a gilded cage. Across from me sat Amal, my wife, undeniably beautiful. Her dark hair was styled to perfection, her lips painted a shade that matched the sleek gown clinging to her figure. Yet beneath her grace and poise lay a chilling emptiness, an unspoken void I could no longer ignore. Years of marriage had bound us, but the past 6 months had unraveled those ties. Late nights at her law firm, cryptic messages, and unexplained absences had driven a wedge between us. Tonight was supposed to mend that rift, a chance to rekindle what once burned brightly between us. Instead, I found myself a mere spectator, watching the woman I loved slip further away. As we sipped our wine, a shadow loomed over our table. I looked up to find a man in his mid-30s, tall, muscular, and radiating arrogance. His impeccably tailored suit failed to mask the smugness seeping from him. Piercing blue eyes locked onto Amal, completely disregarding my presence. "Amal," he said smoothly, his voice a calculated blend of charm and condescension. "I didn't expect to see you here tonight." Amal froze, her glass suspended midair. Her gaze flickered between him and me before she finally spoke. "Lucas," she stammered, her voice betraying more than she likely intended. "What are you doing here?" "Enjoying the city," he replied with an easy grin. Then, to my utter disbelief, he reached out and took her hand, his audacity palpable. With sheer disdain, he added, "Why stay with him? Let's dance first, and then I'll show you what I can offer." The restaurant fell into a stunned hush. Eyes turned toward us, the weight of their curiosity pressing in. Amal attempted to pull her hand away, but Lucas held firm. His brazen confidence ignited a fire within me. I rose slowly, my chair scraping against the floor, the sound slicing through the silence. "You have 3 seconds to let go of her hand," I said, my voice calm but edged with danger. Lucas sneered. "And if I don't?" The response was immediate. The sickening snap of breaking bones shattered the stillness, and Lucas crumpled, clutching his ruined hand. His pained cries reverberated through the room, drawing every gaze to our table. Amal gasped, her face a mixture of shock and fear. The other diners remained frozen, watching in disbelief. "Magnus," she whispered, her voice trembling as she clutched my arm. "What are you doing?" I ignored her, crouching beside Lucas, whose face twisted in pain. Leaning in close, I whispered, my voice devoid of sympathy. "This is just the beginning. You made a mistake tonight, and I will make sure you regret it." His eyes burned with hatred, his jaw clenched in agony. "You'll pay for this," he snarled through gritted teeth. Straightening, I turned to Amal, who sat frozen in her seat. "Let's go," I ordered, my tone sharp. She hesitated, her wide eyes darting between me and Lucas. "No," I snapped, cutting through her indecision. Slowly she rose, her heels clicking against the floor as she followed me out. Behind us, whispers among the other diners grew into a hushed murmur of speculation. The drive home was suffocating. The silence in the car was thick, an unspoken tension pressing between us. Amal sat stiffly, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. I could tell her mind was racing, scrambling for an explanation. When we pulled into the garage, I killed the engine and turned to face her. "Talk," I demanded, my voice slicing through the stillness. She flinched, her composure unraveling. "Magnus, I don't know what you want me to say," she murmured, her eyes fixed on her lap. I want the truth, I said, leaning closer. Who is he? How long has this been going on? Tears welled up in her eyes, but a reckoning of betrayal and redemption. I felt nothing. Any trace of sympathy I once had for her had long since withered away. It's complicated, she murmured, her voice hesitant. A bitter laugh escaped me. Let me simplify it for you. Either you tell me everything right now, or I find out myself. And trust me, you won't like how that ends. Her shoulders sagged, and the last remnants of defiance crumbled. 6 months, she admitted in a whisper. It started 6 months ago. The confession, though unsurprising, struck me harder than I had expected. I inhaled deeply, forcing myself to stay composed. And tonight? My voice was steady, too steady. Was this supposed to be my public humiliation? A grand performance to rub your betrayal in my face? No, she sobbed, her voice fractured with desperation. I didn't know he'd be there, Magnus. I swear. I cut her off, my tone sharp. Enough. I saw how you looked at him. The way you hesitated. The way you froze when he spoke. You knew. She covered her face with trembling hands, muffling the sound of her broken sobs. I stared ahead, my mind whirring with 1,000 calculations. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed a plan. The following morning, I sat in my office, the Geneva skyline sprawling before me. My thoughts were a volatile mix of fury and cold resolve. Betrayal coursed through me like venom, but I refused to let it consume me. If Amal and Lucas thought they could walk away unscathed, they were gravely mistaken. I started with Lucas. A simple online search painted a curated image of success: luxury cars, private jets, designer suits. The illusion of affluence. But beneath that polished facade, cracks had begun to form. Failed ventures. Lawsuits. Whispers of illicit dealings. Lucas was not as invincible as he believed himself to be. Reaching out to a network of trusted contacts, financial analysts, forensic accountants, and specialists in corporate fraud, I began assembling a dossier on him. Within hours, I had what I needed. Bank records, unpaid debts, high-risk investments teetering on the brink of collapse. He was living on borrowed time. But I wasn't done. Next, I turned my attention to Amal. While she continued to play the role of the devoted wife, I quietly gathered irrefutable proof of her infidelity: emails, text exchanges, and damning photographs of her rendezvous with Lucas. Every shred of evidence was meticulously stored in a secured digital archive. This wasn't revenge, it was leverage. If she tried to fight me in the divorce, I wouldn't hesitate to use it. The final stage of my plan was to ensure their downfall was as public as their deceit. Lucas was lured into attending an exclusive charity gala, one frequented by Geneva's elite. Simultaneously, an eager journalist received the explosive report detailing Lucas's financial misdeeds. By the end of the night, his fraudulent dealings and criminal activities were splattered across every major newspaper. The fallout was swift. "High society fraudster exposed," one headline screamed. "Luxury lies, businessman caught in a web of deception," another declared. Lucas's once flawless reputation shattered overnight. Authorities launched a full-scale investigation, freezing his assets and dismantling his empire. Former allies abandoned him, desperate to distance themselves from the scandal. Stripped of his wealth and influence, Lucas vanished into obscurity. And Amal? She wasn't spared. Whispers spread like wildfire through the social circles she once thrived in. Invitations ceased. Friends disappeared. Even her own family, ashamed of the disgrace, withdrew from her. When I finally placed the divorce papers before her, she attempted to resist, but the weight of the evidence left her powerless. Thanks to our prenuptial agreement, she walked away with nothing. Our final encounter in the courtroom was devoid of theatrics. The woman who had once radiated poise and confidence now stood before me as a shadow of her former self, exhausted, hollow, and clinging to what little dignity remained. As we exited the courthouse, she turned to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Magnus!" She hesitated, searching my face for any trace of the man who once loved her. I know I hurt you, but was all of this really necessary? I met her gaze, my expression unwavering. You made your choices, Amal. Choices have consequences. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't argue. With a slow nod, she turned and walked away without another word. Months passed. Life settled into a new rhythm. The house, once suffocated by tension and deceit, was now quiet. Peaceful. I threw myself into my work, sealing major deals and expanding my company's reach across Europe. The sting of betrayal lingered, but it dulled with time, replaced by an unshakable clarity. One evening, I attended another charity gala, this time with a renewed sense of self. As I navigated the sea of powerful elites, I felt a light touch on my shoulder. Turning, I found myself face to face with a woman exuding an effortless elegance. Mr. Adler, she greeted, offering a warm, knowing smile. I'm Isabelle Faure. A historian. She tilted her head slightly. I've heard a great deal about your work, it's impressive. We spoke for hours. Her sharp intellect and genuine curiosity were a welcome contrast to the shallow conversations I had grown accustomed to. For the first time in a long while, I felt something stir, something real. A reminder that, despite all the darkness, there was still light to be found. Later that night, standing alone on the balcony of my home, I gazed out at the endless stretch of city lights. I reflected on the road that had led me here, the pain, the betrayal, and the strength forged in their wake. Lifting a glass of wine to the night sky, I murmured the words that had become my truth. Pain sharpens us. Strength shapes us. With that final thought, I turned away, stepping forward into the future.